now. Hey, welcome back to the Take a Mulligan podcast. And today we're recording actually at Brian's office here. So this is pretty
live
cool.
right here at Mulligan Physical Therapy.
So although we're not live today, although someday we'll do the live version kind of thing.
But it is nice to like be together for this instead of remotely over a studio online.
So you should maybe have to do that once in a while. We'll come together.
Yeah, it's a lot more fun to do it this way.
So you recently had this trip where we call it a mission trip. You went on a mission trip, right? And so tell me, like, okay, because for a lot of people, like, I think that's, I don't know, they think like third world country kind of thing when you think of mission trip, which is probably in some ways that's appropriate, but yet not, because there's so much. I mean, the whole world's a mission field to share about Jesus. So but you went on a specific trip for a specific purpose. And you got to use you weren't there just to tell people about Jesus, which is really obviously cool, but you went there as part of what you do here at the with physical therapy. So how did you get involved in this whole thing? How did this come about? How did this opportunity place itself in front of you, or did you go searching for it?
Yeah, so it kind of came to me. So our church, Riverstone Church over in Jarley, PA, they do mission trips regularly, and I had gone on one. I think it was 12 years ago now. It was through the same church, but it was a whole different organization. It was just kind of a non-church organization, but it was a medical mission trip at that time. We went to Guatemala, and I was doing PT down there, and it was really cool, like you said, to be able to go on a trip like that. It was the first one I went on. And to be able to do PT in another country and help with what I do here, instead of just like going and like building walls or projects to build things or do VBS, vacation Bible schools and stuff.
I think that's so wild, because I think a lot of times, like, even if I went to mission field kind of like to do something like that, like, okay, what can I do? Well, I could build a wall or something like that. Now I have some home skills that maybe the average person doesn't have, but it's not like my career. That's not like what I do. I think it's so cool that you could use your career and actually go down there. And in some countries, like, I know that's the way in. Right, because that they use as a back door to do that. But you didn't have to do that here. But so there was a team got together. So what did the team entail?
So the last time I did this, it was a surgical team. So we knew that for therapy, we were doing post-surgical rehab and stuff. So that was kind of clear. So this team, when it was getting put together, it was organized through my church, Riverstone, but then also through an organization in Kensington called Productive Lives.
Okay.
So that was led by Cam Garvin, which we've known for a long time. We had him on our podcast. Yeah. So he was kind of organizing some pieces because he's already worked with the organization down in the Dominican Republic where we went. So it was an easy connection. So then he connected with our church. And at our church, we actually have kind of a list of medical professionals in our church. Cool.
Okay.
So when stuff like this comes up, they know to go down the list and say, oh, I wonder if they'd be interested because we have this need. And actually, I think it was last year or almost 2 years ago now, there was another trip we were actually going to do because we have a lot of connections in Lebanon. Wow. And they were going to send them. My name came up and a couple other people that were planning to do a medical trip there, and then things got really bad.
Yeah, it's pretty nasty there right now.
So they canceled that whole thing. So then this one came up, and it was needed for a medical missions trip, is what they wanted. And they contacted, I guess, the individuals that were on the list, knowing what they were hoping to need for the trip. So Productive Lives had worked with Project Mañana as a group that we worked with down there in Dominican. So they're an amazing organization, and we got to know the director there is Brian Berman. So he started this whole thing. That's a cool story in itself. Okay. So I'll tell a little bit about that. So I probably won't do justice like he would.
Tell the story. Get him on the program.
So we already talked about that. Yeah, he said he'd come on and talk about it. So I won't share his whole story. But so basically, he's a guy that was living out in California, was living in the corporate world, was young 20s, doing really, really well in the corporate world. And then he was at a funeral, and all of a sudden kind of something triggered that there's got to be more to life than what he's doing. Wow. He grew up in the church, but wasn't really living it too much. And then he decided to get back involved in the church after this epiphany he had. And when he got involved in the church, he went on a missions trip to the Dominican a couple of years later, and he never came home. Wow. So he went down there, got so enamored by the community he was working in, and saw all these needs that they had, left his whole corporate life behind, used some of the resources he had, and just said, I guess I'm going to be a missionary.
Wow.
And it's really cool when you hear him tell the story, because he really had no idea what he was doing. But what is so cool about his story is that he was able to take, this whole different perspective of a corporate business mindset, and how do I make something grow down here to make it a mission field and make it a missions project that can really be different than just hoping to go to a church and get some funding and go here and get funding. So he really turned it into a nonprofit organization. And so he had lots of contacts. So he was able to fund a lot of stuff that they were doing from corporations, and went to businesses who would support what he was doing financially, along with traditional, churches and other support that he had. So,
this ties into the whole thing where, and if anybody listening to the business world, like I just think there's so much the business world can offer things. Again, a lot of things that coming from the church perspective, like, you still know this stuff.
Yeah.
Church world's a different world. It's an anomaly unto itself, right? And I think of, like, even send, like, okay, so we send a bunch of people down to go build a house. Well, most of us don't know how to build a house. We're fumbling through, and it's great. You have the experience, all kind of stuff. But wouldn't it be great if you send 10 carpenters down? Like, wouldn't that be better? Or 10, masons that know, can do that kind of work, depending on what you need. But I just think there's a lot we can learn, I think, from the business world. And I think there's a lot of guys out there and gals out there that could add so much dimension to work out there. That's not just sharing the gospel, but hitting the practical needs, like you guys are doing.
Because there's so much need for certain aspects of every trip. And I think a lot of people just go because they think, well, this would be a good time to serve. It'd be a nice thing to do. It's always nice to help people. But imagine going with the profession you have, and that's essentially what we did. So Project Mañana has been operating down there for, I think, 10 years now, or 12 years. So they started with looking at the needs of the community down there. So the town we went to was a town of Santiago in Dominican Republic, and it was a little town of San Pablo there. So that's where we stayed. That's where Project Mañana is housed. So what Project Mañana was able to do was when he first got down there, he was able to look at the needs of the community. And these community, most thing was the nutrition and the health of the kids in the community. They were all very malnourished. It's a very poor community.
Which
there wasn't really good running water.
That's what we do on the side, right? So
So it was so the nutrition aspect was really big, because these kids are not getting healthy meals at all. So he was able to establish a program where they were getting at least one healthy meal a day, and they were learning about nutrition a little bit, and health, and how to manage those things. So then he obviously started getting more people on board, and then they created a school with a sponsorship program. So they have a sponsorship program for the kids, like a lot of other sponsorship programs. So they provide the schooling, the education, the nutrition, uniforms for the kids, and all kinds of other resources outside of that.
Now, is that all staff that he's brought in with, from other missionaries down that are coming?
No, it's mostly it's all local people.
Wow.
Yeah. So the local people are really who's housing this organization now.
Wow, that's great.
Which now it's 63 staff members, all local people.
So now you're employing locals too.
Yeah.
And they're making money.
And they're part of the organization. And not all of them live right in that little town of San Pablo, because a lot of them live outside in different towns, but they work and go there. And even the church that's connected to Project Mañana, it's its own independent church, but it's housed in the same building that Project Mañana's mission center is in. So we stayed in a mission center with kind of dorm style rooms. So the guys had one, the girls had one, and we had all our meals there. They do wonderful cooking there. They had amazing meals, amazing chefs there. All the locals that cook amazing food there. So we had breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day. And so that's all in one building. And then on the one floor of the building is the church. The second floor is the classrooms for the church for different programs they have. And then we stayed on the third floor, and the fourth floor was where we ate and met and, had devotion time and debrief time and all the time together. So that's the one building. And then they have the whole school and the nutrition center, which is two separate buildings. The school is pre-K, I believe, up through 8th grade. And then they don't have a high school yet. They're working on it. They're hoping to build one right in the middle of everything. So we got to tour all these things. that was pretty much the first full day we were there. We got to tour all this stuff.
So he's literally transforming this whole town.
It's like, amazing. Totally,
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because you need, I mean, obviously just basics,
yep.
Good nutrition, right? At the best you can, right? And then, education. Right?
Yeah.
Wow.
And they were able to get a lot of the kids off the street because a lot of these kids weren't able, because of the economy there and how poor this community is. They weren't able to even get, the kids off the street to go to school because some of that cost money, or, they need resources to get them to the schools. So now the kids, he said, are off the street and in the school now. So it looks totally different in the neighborhood now during a school day because all the kids are in school. They're not running around the streets.
Wow. That's wild.
And so then they offer all the nutrition as well. And so their goal is to build a high school right in the middle of where everything is. And they have wonderful teachers, wonderful programs. And the kids are just all, I mean, it's amazing. So I went to Guatemala, and that was a very interesting experience. And we were in the city, though, so we didn't see a lot of the outskirts too much of the poor areas. Okay. We were pretty well housed there. We stayed in a nice facility, so it wasn't like it was this poor area. So this was a very different experience because we were right in the town where everybody was. It's a small town, very poor. There's lots of trash all over the streets. It doesn't get well kept. Nobody has enough money to take care of things there. So having the resources that this organization's been able to provide has been huge. And every time you talk to him about it, like, I was amazed. It was great to get to know him. And it was just amazing to see where it was, where it is, where it's going. Yeah. And every time you talk to, he gives glory to God. He's just a vessel being used right now. And he's very humble to know that. And it's amazing to see. This is all what God is doing. This isn't a person doing it. It's not an organization doing it. It's God working through these different aspects.
God's responsible for everything. I mean, he makes everything happen. He grows it. Even the church. Church it grows because of him. We just set the groundwork. Right? I mean, that's what we're called to do. So,
and meeting people's practical needs is such an awesome way to do that. By making sure that they have education, so that these kids can get out of this community. Because there's a lot of broken families down there. Some of these kids, what was interesting is when we talked about the nutrition center, they have a little kind of garden off to the side that was set up and designed. And, we looked at it, it's like, oh, it's kind of nice. It's a nice little garden. And it was actually in honor of Brian's mom, who had passed away. So it's this nice little garden, and you kind of look at it from the outside. I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of nice. Like, nice little place. But when he gave perspective to that, it was so unique. Because the perspective he was giving is like, to you and I, it looks like, oh, there's some rocks over there, a couple chairs. It looks nice. It's a tropical area, so it looks nice. But for these kids, it's their only place that they can get away from the homes they're in. Wow. And for them to be able to get away for even just a couple minutes, to have this little sanctuary of peace. He said it means so much to these kids because a lot of these kids are in very, very poor home environments. So when they go to school, they're able to get out of that environment. And sometimes they just need a little bit of time into this little oasis. So that's really why it was designed. And when he said that, it's like, it's hard to not come to tears realizing that this little area means that much to this population, where we just look at it, it's like no big deal. So
perspective, right? We go to the beach with the resorts, and it's like, I need my getaway, right?
Yeah.
And these kids and stuff just have, wow. So tell me, like, when you first, I mean, obviously you've been in other countries that are poor, but so what was like your first feeling, like when you got there and you just, like, I don't know, saw some of this stuff? Like, how did that hit you?
What was really cool was, obviously we're in Dominican. It's a beautiful country. The landscapes is beautiful. We were in the poor areas. We weren't in the Punta Canas and all the resort areas. We were probably about, I think, an hour and a half or so from that. We were kind of in the middle. So we're like almost an hour, I think, almost an hour from Haiti, which is not a great country right now. And then almost an hour and a half or so from the other coast, which is where all the resorts are. So we were kind of a little bit in the middle. So it's a beautiful country, but it just feels weird because you're in another country. You know that most people are going to speak a different language, and my Spanish is not great. I was able to get along okay, but we had lots of translators that helped throughout the way. So when you get there, what was interesting is just, the excitement of the newness, and to go back to just for a second to the team that we had that got assembled was, it was a group of medical professionals. So we had 2 internist doctors. We had a women's health doctor. We had a pediatrician. We had 2 nurses. We had a pharmacy, pharmacist, and myself as physical therapy, and then we had 2 pastors.
Yeah.
So we had a pretty good crew of staff there. And when we were putting this team together, I was again asked if I'd be interested in this trip. So when I was asked about it, I went to the first couple meetings, and I said, "Yeah, as a physical therapist, sure. I don't know that I'm as important on this trip because I don't know how much need there are, but I'm more than happy to go and just do whatever. Like, you might run into issues where, because I know a lot of when they do medical clinics in some of these countries, it's just like you get swamped with people. It's just overwhelming, and it's just all hands on deck, and you don't know what you're going to need. So I thought, hey, maybe I'm going to help out taking blood pressures for patients, like something that I can help out with anywhere that I can help. That's what I thought. And even as we were going around with Brian, when he came to one of the first meetings with us all, and he was talking about it, we were like, what do you need? And he said, this is exactly what we need. We need every single person that's here. This is exactly what we need right now on this trip in particular. Okay. Other trips we might need something else. This trip, we need exactly what you guys have to offer right now. Every single person here is what we need. Okay. And then what was interesting was one of the women that was supposed to go with us, I think she was a lab tech. She couldn't go last minute. So the other person that happened to fill in last minute was a pharmacist. And that was the one need we didn't know we needed, but we desperately needed. So she was key to having that, because we weren't originally going to have a pharmacist there. So it was totally a God thing. Yeah. So it was neat to see that need was filled as well. So I still went on this trip kind of thinking like, all right, again, I think they're going to have way more medical needs than what I'm like. How many people are going to need physical therapy there? And especially because it wasn't post-surgical stuff, I had no idea what to expect or what I was going to see. So I just thought, well, I'll just do whatever. And was very surprised once we got everything set up that I was very busy. So that was even cooler to see, because like you mentioned, like to be able to do what you do for a living and take it to another country and then realize there's a need for what I do in other countries. It was really fun. It was a lot of fun. I'll get into that a little bit more, but to go back to the town and what I thought. So when you get to the town, it's a poor town. I mean, there's, like I said, there's trash everywhere. The people are wonderful. They're very welcoming. They're very friendly.
When you say trash everywhere, I mean, they're poor towns. So like, it's not like they have McDonald's wrappers. What's the trash?
Well, so there's bottles everywhere. Okay. So there's trash of just bags or anything you can think of, trash otherwise. It just lays in the gutters of the streets. It's there was a field there. It's like riddled with trash there as well. So they don't have very good drinking water at all there. So it either has to be filtered, which we did have that. And then a lot of times what they'll do is they take the 5-gallon, water jugs from like a water cooler. We had water coolers, and so they have all these little bodegas on the corners. They have a different name for them there, but that's what they had on the corners. And on most of these little corner, stores, they would have just stacks and stacks of these 5-gallon barrels of water, just like you would use on a water cooler. Okay. But some people didn't have access to have a water cooler. And if they could afford to buy one of those, that's what they would use to drink with, to wash with. So that was kind of their running water for a lot of people right in the town we were living in. Wow. So then the other thing they would have is bottled water or bottled drinks. So those are strewn all over the place too. So it's like, that's the kind of trash you would see all over the place. Okay. But the people were just so welcoming when you saw them. And what was cool was the first night after we got acclimated a little bit, we just kind of took a walk around the town just to see the town. And our building was nice. We had air conditioning, so we weren't like, we had air conditioning.
So they have electricity.
They have electricity there, but it's spotty. We lost electricity several times throughout the week. It would just go out. So it happened more often to people who don't have as much resources. But luckily, the building we were in, and we had good air conditioning and stuff. And so you would walk around. What's that?
Is it hot down there?
Yeah, it was. It was probably like mid 80s to high 80s, almost 90 each day.
Nights cooler?
Nights are definitely cooler. There's always a nice breeze. It's not as humid. It's not like the humidity we have here, even though it's tropical. But it just definitely feels different. Yeah. But it was always it's cool in the mornings, and it gets pretty hot in the sun, and then it gets cool at night again. Okay. But
skies must be beautiful.
The skies were beautiful. The sunsets were beautiful. And we had mountains kind of around us, so it was nice to see out in the morning. It was nice to see the sunrise and then set on the other side. It was, like I said, it's a beautiful like geographic area. They have mountains everywhere. They got beaches, so they have a lot of geography there, which is really nice. And so the one night when we got acclimated, we walked around the town, and like I said, there's all kinds of stuff. I mean, there's a lot of like tin roof houses. There's a lot of tin, the corrugated tin like panels that people would put up sometimes for roofing. Sometimes that was their walls of their home. And then you had a lot of other homes that were block, that were cement and block, and they were nice. So it was a lot of variety throughout the town, and the streets were pretty decent, but there were some side streets that were really, really rough. Like you didn't really want to drive on them. So the infrastructure had gotten better, but still needs a lot of work.
Okay.
And so there was this one big open field and a really nice basketball court that I don't know who provided that, but they built that at some point in the recent years.
Okay.
So the kids had a place to play. So we walked around the one night, and there's this big open field that looks like it would be a wonderful soccer field or baseball field, but apparently nobody would maintain it. So if you built it, it's just going to get destroyed or just not maintained, and all the money went to waste.
Water all that grass.
Right. So unfortunately, they just have it as a big open field, lots of trash around. There was a cow in the middle of it for most of the week. I'm not sure where that cow came from. And there was a couple like old abandoned cars on the sides of the field. So it wasn't the most optimal for kids to play, but that's all they had. Other times when they had gone down with Productive Lives trips, they had actually mowed the grass and did like a VBS and used that field to do some games and stuff out there. Okay. So they have utilized it. So we were walking around, and just the kids would just come up to you and just start walking with you, say hi to you. Some of them even hug you, and we stick out like sore thumbs when we're the Americans walking around. So they're just so friendly, and I think they're excited to know, and they also know that Project Mañana has such a presence in the community, and because it's done such a great job to help the community, and they know when people come down and work with them, it's like, hey, these people are here to help. So they really react that way. Okay. And some people on the trip are kind of worried about the safety originally, asking questions like, what, is it safe there? So the way it was described to us was the fact that because they do such great work there in the community, even some of the bad guys around the community will help protect Project Mañana because some of their kids might be in the programs. Okay. So they may not be the greatest citizens in what they're involved in, but they're keeping an eye out as well. So they'll kind of watch your back.
That's cool.
So that was kind of nice to know. And we didn't really have any trouble at all. We were told not to walk around at night too much because, there's still crime and stuff going on around. But as long as we stayed together and stayed indoors after that. But so we were walking around the one night and we just went over to this basketball court, and there was just a ton of kids over there. Yeah. And we started shooting hoops with them, and other people were talking to them, playing games with them. So it was just so cool to just see all this interaction.
Now, what do people do for a living down there? Like
So there's a lot of cigar industry is a big industry down there. Okay. So it's a factory setup. So there's a lot of people that work in the factories there. Okay.
And then it's all shipped probably here.
A lot of blue collar stuff, farmers, I'm trying to think what else they had down there. 'Cause it's a lot of blue collar type of work. There's not a whole lot of corporate stuff going on down there. And a lot of them are trying to find jobs wherever they can. Like I had worked with a couple auto mechanics that were local.
Wow.
And that was what was cool too, is as you were walking around the town, these were the same people whose kids were in the program. So the kids go to the school. So you see them in the street playing basketball one night, and then the next day we saw them in the school.
Okay.
So they're all so intertwined in the community. So staying in the community with our housing was great because we were able to just completely interact with the community. So that's what was very different than the last time we did a missions trip. Like we were just separated from the hospital. We had our own little place to stay, but you didn't really interact. So that's what was so unique to me. And that was a really cool part of the whole trip, was being able to see these people. So then we set up we met with Project Mañana's staff, and they have, so the last piece of this whole, organization that he's developing right now was a medical clinic. So he designed the medical clinic, had that up and running last summer. So we were only the fourth medical team to go there. We were only the first of this year, I think, or the second of this year. So 4 medical teams have only been there so far. We were the fourth. And they have a second floor that's completely dental. So they have a whole dental floor. They have a full-time dentist that works there, works with the kids with education, but also, treats the patients that can get there. And then the third floor of that building is some different office and community space. And then they have counseling offices as well. So they provide counseling services. Wow. And then the first floor was all set up for medical. So the only way they can provide medical is with trips like ours, because most of the time the people can't afford medical care. but they're there for a resource, but there's not many people that can kind of come and engage unless they run a clinic. So they do now have a full-time pediatrician there, and the nurse, and then the dentist. So they're the main medical staff that's at this facility. Okay. So we met with them the one day, and then met with a lot of other volunteers that were planning to be there to help us out with the pharmacy, with translations, and all kinds of other stuff.
So how often does he have a team like this come in?
Right now, we were the fourth.
Okay.
And his plan is, and he's already established this, that it's going to be every quarter he has a team coming down.
Okay.
So,
but you still think like they need it every day.
Oh, I know. Well, that's the goal. So the goal was, since he's got this set up now, and he's got our team coming from local Philadelphia area. He's got a team from California, a team from Arkansas, I think, and a team from Ohio. So they're the 4 teams he's established, and now he's got them on the schedule. He's got us all on the schedule now to come back about the same time of year we did last year. So now we're already scheduled to go back in March.
So you going?
So I'm hoping to go, and then whoever else on our team can make it, or if they can't, we'll interact different people into the team. But essentially, we're planning to send a team down next March, just like the other states are going to send their teams at their time. So that's how he has it designed now. The goal is then to take that and expand it to have even more teams and more teams to have it a full-time medical clinic.
Wow. Now, is there other things people could do? Like, let's say, your wife Kim wanted to go.
Right.
What is there?
So it depends on the trips, because our trip, we really just had medical staff. Okay. We only had, like I said, the 2 pastors, which was great to have. They were helping kind of facilitate getting people to the right location. They were praying with people. They were just encouraging people. So they definitely had a huge role, but they were the only non-medical people that were there. So, should my wife come, or should another spouse come that's non-medical, they probably would have filled them in a little bit, maybe to help out with the kids while the parents are being seen, to keep an eye on the kids, that kind of thing. Okay. But we actually had, the other teams had like 20 people. We had 11. I think one team had 25. So
wow.
I'm sure there was a little bit more non-medical staff that just helped fill in wherever they needed. But I think for those kind of trips, what his plan was to have a trip like that would be, okay, well, if I know that, your family wants to come down and your kids aren't medical and your wife's not medical, but they could serve and do a BBS or do a building project, I'm going to take you and I'm going to do a 2-day clinic for therapy, and you can come see people for 2 days for physical therapy while they're doing some work with the school or something.
Okay.
So that's actually how he would like it to be designed, and he's working on a program to actually do that. So if we knew we wanted to come down as a family and do a missions trip, and even did like 2 days, he would set me up to do physical therapy for a couple days. We would stay there. And then if my family could help in other ways, I'm sure they'll find something for us to do that we could all kind of work together. So it's, they have other trips. They have, I think, like 36 trips a year they're running. So when we left, they had a youth group that came down, and they did a VBS and did a housing project.
Okay.
So last summer, when Productive Lives went down, they worked on a housing project, and then the other part of the team worked on VBS with the school and the church. Okay. So they do interact a lot of different ways, and I think they're willing to have as many teams come down as possible, and they just want to be efficient with the service.
Oh yeah. The reality is it costs a lot of money to send you down there. That's airfare, that's everything. So you want to make it worth. And that was always my hang up when it came to mission trip. Like, you can spend all these oodles of money and to say, hey, we went down there and we did this and this. And in the scheme of things, like, you did do a whole lot. You did a lot for you because you went down and you felt good about it, right?
Yeah, but we're really helping
things where what I love about this is, no, you guys went there and you made an impact,
Yeah.
And it obviously got to share the gospel in ways too. So before you get into that, so what was your average day like? What happened?
So once we got kind of acclimated, the first full day we were there, we toured the school and we got to see the kids and everything, and got to see that whole program, which was great to see all the behind the scenes. Then we met with and oriented with the staff that was going to be working with us. Okay. And then we set up our clinic, and then we had the next 3 days we were running the clinic. So it was a little bit getting used to. I think probably one of my favorite parts about being there and serving as a therapist, there was no documentation. It was so nice. You didn't have to worry about anything. I mean, we were making
build the insurance company.
So there's no insurance involved. You didn't have to worry about a whole lot of those aspects of regular day to day. Being in a physical therapy clinic or medical office. But they have a very good system down there, and they're working actually on getting a much better system for documentation. So if a person comes in and is seen by the pediatrician, they want to make sure that they have record of who this person was seen, what was the issue, and they are keeping a record of it. Right now, it's all paper. They're trying to go to all electronic stuff. So the goal, again, I love his visionary mindset.
Our doctors are still on paper, so don't worry about it.
So his whole vision is to get some type of software program that if we come down, we can pull up if we're seeing the same patient and see, oh, this is what they had last time they were here. This is what they were treated with. Cool. This is why they were here. And now I know what I need to do. So we wanted to have follow-up. A lot of the doctors that were on the trip, that's what they were very concerned about that as well. Like, if I find an issue with a patient I'm seeing, what's the follow-up care going to be? So the clinic is handling the follow-up care, but they're also very limited because some stuff has to go beyond and into the hospital because they only have so many resources. And just to throw this out there real quick with the medical piece of this was mind-blowing. So the way medical works down there, or the healthcare system works down there, is it's extremely poor. I mean, we think we have it bad here. We do have it bad here, but they have a system set up that was described kind of similar to like a Medicaid type of program, where it's kind of a state-funded program for those that could even afford to be part of that. And the way the system works is they have different clinics or a hospital that you can go to should you need a doctor. But the way he described it to us was literally, you might have to go at 4 a.m. to sit outside and wait outside a clinic door to hopefully get to see a doctor at maybe 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock the next day. So people will literally line up waiting to see a doc for hours and hours and hours.
Sick. And for whatever reason, yeah.
And the same thing at night, he said, with pediatrics, it's a bigger concern to get the kids seen. But you might have an appointment that the doctor says, come over at 3 a.m. and we'll have to try to get you in. Hopefully it won't be a 5-hour wait. So that's how it works in most of these poorer communities. Now there's, hospital systems there, and if you have insurance, then it kind of looks similar to ours. But, in the poorer areas, that's all the healthcare they get. So when we had a clinic like this, it was huge. So they find out from the community, like, oh, what needs are there, who, and that's how they developed our team, was they realized what needs we had. So that was the first great part. And then they have some other system set up where they reach out to the communities, tell them, here's what we're offering. So if you want to come in, you have to register. So they kind of had an idea of, a pre-registration type of thing. So it wasn't just like 5,000 people coming in one day. So we ended up seeing patients all day for 3 straight days. And we ended up seeing 250 patients in 3 days total. Crazy. Which was great. And we were hoping to see about 300, but we didn't quite see that many. So we still helped out 250 people. And like I said, these are people that are in the community where we lived, surrounding communities. And what's nice is because the staff is part of the community as well, they also came in and got seen for needs they had because they live in the community. It was offered to them. So why not? So we got to treat some of the staff and look into their issues that they had as well.
So now from a PT standpoint, so someone comes in, you're working with them.
Yeah.
Some of it's post-surgical stuff.
No, it was none of it was post-surgical.
Okay, so it's just their back is aching.
Yeah,
they're struggling. So what are you doing with them? Like, what are you?
Well, so that was a hard shift, and I had to make the shifts really, really fast because we were supposed to try to be like 20 minutes a patient. Okay. Now for the doctors, that's like a lifetime.
And it's not like they can come back. Okay, I'll see you on Wednesday again and Friday again.
Yeah. So from the medical part, that was probably easy for them. That, like I said, 20 minutes is probably a lifetime for a doctor to see a patient, there.
Yeah, we get 6 minutes.
Yeah, right. So for them, I think it was a little bit easier because it's like, okay, here's what you need. Here's the medication. Here's what we're recommending, and ship them out the door. Because they wouldn't normally see them either unless it was something they needed to come back for, testing lab work or something else. For me, my whole world is, it's consistency. It's seeing people like 2 or 3 times a week for 4 weeks or something to help them get better. So I had to shift really quickly. And for me, 20 minutes was really fast because I see people for an hour. Yeah. And it was hard because, you're trying to evaluate what's happening to at least find out why are they here, what's wrong with them, how did it happen, all the normal things I would ask, but I had to do it really fast. and it's all through a translator. So that's even worse. So the translator I had the first, and the first
have 10 minutes because you get.
I had this great guy, Cadmiel. He was wonderful. He is in charge of the discipleship for the whole program, Project Mañana.
Okay.
So he works with discipling all of the staff members and helping them in that way. So he was a great translator. And what was so cool about that was as as we were translating, he's repeating everything I'm saying, like, about where's your back pain, all these different things. Okay. So it was almost like he was getting an education in physical therapy because he was repeating everything I was saying. So it was kind of neat. Like I said, it was so cool to see that there was a need for therapy in another country. What I do matters in another country. But it was even really special to be able to talk to him. And then I had another wonderful young lady who was a dental student who did translation for me the last day. And it was neat to be able to share with them, and they get to have them educated on here's what physical therapy is, because you're listening to me, we're talking about it. And we got to talk a lot about different things. So it was neat to get those relationships too. So I didn't know what I was going to see. So they started coming in. All of a sudden, it's back and neck pain, it's shoulder pain, it's knee pain, it's foot pain, So some of them was neglected care because they couldn't really afford care. So some of it was like situations where this one guy had this terrible knee issue, never had been addressed before. Another guy had a stroke years ago and just is getting around the town and never had it addressed before either. So it was kind of the same stuff I see here, bad posture,
I was going to say, so much of it goes back to bad posture.
It does, yeah.
And then we lean into the pain, right? Is that what typically, right? We lean into the pain?
Well, not necessarily that. It's more just the bad posture creates the problems. When we're all forward and hunched over all the time over computers and phones and everything else, it's, not correcting that changes all the alignment so that your back hurts, your neck hurts, and that stuff. And that was a lot of what I did. So what I had planned ahead for, I didn't know what I was going to see. I planned ahead. I brought exercises and stretches for various body regions in Spanish. So I knew that was going to be easy to at least hand it to them, circle some stuff, and tell them, hey, try this.
Okay.
And that's generally what I did. Was I did do some treatment on some people, would stretch them out, try to get them to feel a little bit better. I did tape some people for different conditions that I would normally tape for. And then I would hand them exercises and education, to tell them. So all this was done through the translator. They did an amazing job translating for me. Some things were hard to translate, and that was kind of funny too, because Cadmiel, as wonderful as he was with knowing his English, he would still get to times where he's like, I don't know how to translate that, what you're saying, into a Spanish word that you would understand or they would understand. So that was kind of interesting.
Wow. So is it hard to shut down your day at the end of the day? Like, you wanted to see more people?
It kind of was.
Like MASH or something, like you're on MASH. Or it's like, oh no, we got more patients.
It kind of was. And, I think I would have definitely gone longer. Like, I would have done a longer day. I would have been like, keep bringing some more in. And it was busy. It was,
I mean, you pretty much do 10 hours a day anyway, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, I wasn't, and most of us weren't too bothered by the long hours or anything. And it was actually shorter hours than we normally do. But it was consistent. It was, it was a constant flow for the most part. And like I said, I was a lot busier than I thought I would be. So my days were constant all day long. And some of the other staff had a little lulls in their schedule just based on who was coming in and what their needs were. But it was really cool too, because, we all worked so well together between the different disciplines that we had there. And what was really unique for the therapy standpoint is a lot of times, I might recommend to a patient like, oh, you might benefit from an injection in the shoulder or the knee pain that you're having, but I can't order that. And, if you see your doctor, maybe they can talk about it. Well, the one doctor we had, Dr. Kim, she loves to give cortisone injections. She had some with her. Wow. So, there was an issue where I'd see somebody that had a lot of pain in their knee or their shoulder and say, you know what, I'm going to recommend you go see her. And if she thinks it's appropriate, she'll put an injection right in. So we were able to do that kind of thing back and forth.
And fast.
Yeah, very fast.
Because you're talking to each other.
Yeah, yep. And then we had medications available. Yeah. So we had as far as pain goes, we had prednisone for people that we could send to them, muscle relaxers. So again, I don't normally have any opportunity to do that or recommend that here in the States. But there it was like, well, we have professionals. And if they're okay with it, dosage is okay. I might say on my form here that this is what's happening with the patient. I'd recommend maybe a steroid, low dose steroid or muscle relaxer. And, we had the professionals that would confirm all of that. So I wasn't making the call.
That's what you
can, but it was nice to be able to have the access to get that immediately. So it was like back and forth to each discipline.
So maybe really cool. We could learn something in our medical community and from third world countries.
I think so.
Can you imagine if you have a team like that and you're all working together and talking?
Yeah.
And you had 20 minutes.
And it was and it was great. I mean, it was so seamless. Even the staff at Project Mañana, they thought we all worked together.
Wow.
So I mean, God really had His hand on everything. Now there was totally God on all that.
Now I know you mentioned these water buckets.
Yeah.
Yes. So share that.
I mean, so that was a whole cool experience. So we ran the clinic for the 3 days. Very successful clinic. It was a great time. The next day, what we did was we worked in another local community. It was about 15 minutes away, called Cienfuegos. And that town was much poorer than what we were in.
Okay.
Now, when we got there, we didn't really know what to expect. It's not far away at all. No, we took a bus. It was probably about a 10-minute ride to get over there.
Do a lot of people just walk like miles around there?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, they do. And a lot of bikes, a lot of motorbikes, a lot of mopeds, a lot of motorcycles they get around on. So we went to this other town, didn't know really what to expect. So we got to this town. This town was really way poorer than what we were in. They had no real running water at all. They had no available drinking water. And apparently the township, the community was trying to build in some plumbing and water into this town, but they used like a 1-inch pipe to come into the town with the water. So by the time it got to the first few houses, there was nothing left for the rest of the community in the back. So people really didn't have much access to it.
Wow, that's bad enough in your home.
I know. So now a whole community trying to get that
way.
So then the other thing most of these homes had was they had like a water collection bucket. It was this big like cistern almost that would sit either on their roof or next to their house. It was black. So imagine the heat coming in there. They would collect rainwater or any other water that they could to either wash dishes with. You really shouldn't be drinking it, but some of them probably did.
Because all this stuff.
Because there's parasites in there, and it's just stagnant water in there. So that was all they had. So in this community now, Project Mañana has a little presence in there. They work with another local church that's in this community, but they have this other water filtration project that they do. So this filtration project, they work with a company called Filters of Hope, which was out of Ohio, I think.
Okay.
He found this company about 10 years ago, and they make this little filter about this big. It lasts for 10 years if you keep it clean.
Okay.
And it literally
about like 8 inches big. So
it's like this little filter. It hooks up to, so we use these 5-gallon like Home Depot buckets. And what was really cool is we all got together first. They're all white. We got together, we decorated them, and the goal is that these buckets are going to sit, if the bucket lasts, in these people's houses for 10 years. So we wanted to give reminders. So a lot of us put verses on there in Spanish, or we just put encouraging things on the bucket so that it would help these families just recognize God's love when they saw this. That was the goal. So we did all this together. We did all our bucket decorations, and then we learned how to do the buckets. You just drill a little hole in the bottom of the bucket. You attach a little tube into it. The tube goes into the filter. At the end of the filter, there's a little spout. So by the time the water comes out, so you put as much dirty water as you want in the bucket, goes through the tube, gets to the filter, and then you can empty the filter out, and you can drink this. Wow. Now, the demonstration, just to make it so real, the demonstration that's used for this, and it's actually, if you buy a filter, they actually send this with it, was the guy that demonstrated this, he put manure in a cup, attached the cup to the filter. He drank it out of the other end once it came through. So it's filtering that well.
Wow.
And if you buy a filter of hope, it comes with a little bag of manure so that you can demonstrate how well this actually works. So
I don't need this.
No. Yeah, luckily we didn't have to actually prove it that it worked that way, but that's how well these filters work.
That's crazy.
So the filter lasts for 10 years. So the goal was, now we had 11 of us on the team.
So how come our fridge filters only last 6 months?
That's a great question. And what's great too is this filter costs $60.
Oh my goodness!
So for that cheap cost, you're helping a family get drinking water. I know, we're really getting ripped off over here. So, so we had all these 11 buckets. We decorated them all, and then we walked around the town. We split up into 2 groups, and the goal was, now we were going to take these. Project Mañana already mapped out the whole town. The town is 90% saturated with these buckets already.
Okay.
So they've already helped 90% of the town. So we had 11 more families we were going to help out. They have an amazing system that they know exactly who has them, how long they've had them. So they knew the next 11 families that we were going to. So they knew exactly where we were going. So we all went to each place. And then the goal was to demonstrate how to use the bucket with translators, explain to them what this was for, why we were doing it, and then share the gospel with them.
Okay.
And then share our testimony with them, and then pray with them. So that was the whole plan.
Okay.
So I was the first one up, and it was interesting because we didn't actually go to a house. We went to one of these, and it's driving me crazy. I can't remember the name of the little bodegas that they had on the corners.
Okay.
So it was a bodega. It was a little store. It wasn't a house. I think the guy lived behind the house or behind the store or something. So he was there. So he was in the store when I went in. So I walked in and, through translators was explaining how to do the bucket. I gave my testimony and I prayed with them. And then we all took a picture with them. And, a lot of them are hugging you. And they're so grateful to have this because they didn't have drinking water. And the town also knows when people come walking around with these white buckets, they know exactly what it is. So they're kind of looking forward to it. They're waiting for it. They know it's going to help them out.
Wow. So share the story. So share how the bucket illustrates.
So I mean, So we could share anything we wanted to, but the whole illustration of the bucket was, when you're filling your heart with all this dirt, and you're filling the bucket with dirty water, and it's coming out, and this filter is just cleaning all that out. It's just like the grace and the love of God and Jesus Christ is He has cleaned all that out of you, so that now you can have living, running water coming out of it. So that was kind of the illustration that we were trying to give them.
It's your choice to drink or not.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Choice.
And
most people choose not to.
Yeah. And some people were, very welcoming and, were like, yeah, that's fine. You can pray with me. And we were told that, their Catholicism is a big faith there.
Okay.
And most people would say they believe in God, say they might believe in Jesus, but they're not real faith goers. They're not real church goers. So it's kind of this global idea of like, yeah, they believe in God, but they don't have a relationship with Him. So that was the big difference. And we knew that coming in because He told us that the people in these communities, they don't have that relationship with Jesus. So that's what we were trying to help share with them.
And I guess part of that is sharing. I mean, the whole bucket thing, like they're not doing anything to earn this from you guys.
Right. Gift, they're just given this gift.
Yeah,
so that's another cool
back
part
into
of the
gospel. It's not religion.
Yeah.
Because so many religions are, you got to earn it and you got to, do all that stuff, try to please God, where this is, God's grace.
And even when we did the medical clinic, it was very similar because a lot of people, just to know that somebody cares enough to come spend time with them, help them with their medical condition, that shows a huge love of God to them. Yeah. But a lot of them we were able to pray with. And the pastors were praying with them as well. So, they were constantly getting, something from God out of it, which was great. And we were obviously getting that as well. So the Filters of Hope thing and the water filtration project, we did that for a few hours and got to all the homes, which was just an amazing experience.
So tell me, because we probably should start wrapping up.
Yeah, I know. It's been going on for longer than I thought.
So what did you walk away with? Like what impacted you? But maybe let's hit it on two aspects. What impacted you most physically, like just from a physical aspect of looking to people, all that kind of stuff, and then what impacted you like spiritually and emotionally? I guess in that sense.
So I think it's just amazing to be in another country, experience a different culture, and just. Again, working with the Project Mañana people, they were just incredible people, and most of them didn't know English. So, I mean, to have two worlds clash, two cultures clash, and have one main purpose was just so cool to work seamlessly. And that's what I missed on the last mission trip I went. The spiritual component was definitely not there. The helping people, it feels great, it's good, we're doing a good service. That was there. But the spiritual aspect of this was so different. And that's what I was looking for in the last trip and didn't get it. And kind of thought, oh, you go on a mission trip, you get this great spiritual, revival kind of thing. And that's what was definitely very evident here. And I think what hit me the most was, again, just the people were wonderful. They're just a different culture than we are, but they're needing the same stuff we need. They need resources. We have a lot more of them here in the States. Yeah. But the fact that we can bring resources to them. So I think for me, recognizing that there's a great need there, the need is being met, but there's still much more need to be met. And I didn't even talk about a couple of the other projects that Project Mañana does for the community. It's honestly amazing the different ways they're
getting him on.
Yeah, he'll explain more hopefully. But it's just that impact was great, and I think just working with people. So I knew some of the people on the trip. I mean, I knew. Cam probably knew the best, and Dr. Kim, Ellen Kim, who was with us because I've known her for a long time. But everybody else you didn't really know. And it's kind of a weird thing when you're working so closely with people, you spend so much time with them. you get to know them pretty well. And it was just a really cool experience. We spent a lot of time with Brian Berman, the guy in charge, and his secondhand guy, Angel, was a great guy too. So getting to know them, learning about them and their culture and their history and kind of what their history is like living there, working with Project Mañana. That was all wonderful experiences. And we had morning devotions every morning. So we got together, we'd have breakfast, we'd have our daily devotions, and just was great to kind of open up. We had a booklet that they put together for each missions trip that comes that's specific to a theme that they have. So ours was transformation, and we went through this booklet each day. And then at the end of the day, we would do a debrief with the whole team and Brian, and kind of again talking about, what did today mean to you? What did you learn today? What jumped out at you? How did God work through you today? And so just when you're in a culture like that, it's like a whole other world. And I think they talked to us the last day about coming home on this high and just getting back to reality. And it's hard to get back to reality. I mean, I still think about the trip. We have a pretty tight group. We text each other quite a bit in our group chat still.
Okay.
But it's just so cool because it really is. It's just such an amazing experience. We worshiped together, we prayed together, we ate together, we spent time together, and God was just working in every aspect of everything the whole week, and you just felt it, you knew it, from the people that we met to just doing devotions together to the staff to everybody that we communicated with. It was just God was just so evident. We were fortunate to have a worship service with them on the Sunday night before we left at their church, and it was all in Spanish. It was great to see these people worshiping and praising God in Spanish, and but the spiritual component of it was really unique, and that's the part I was looking for, and I think it was really evident there. And it was just really great to be able to see that God's at really great work in this community. And it hit me that like, wow, why can't we just take this model of what was created here and just like franchise it to like everywhere, because it works so well and it's been so well developed. And that's kind of how I look at it. Yeah, that's
the future, right?
Yeah.
I'm thinking, why can't you take what you guys experienced there and bring that back to the States?
Yeah,
which is so weird because we're learning from
I know.
mission field,
right?
But why, I mean, could you imagine if you just have a small group of people? It's like, hey, so how did your day go? And we touch base, and
I know,
and you're praying for each other regularly, and you're just, hey, this is what's going on in life, and doing life together, like literally doing life together on a. I mean, daily gets busy, but like on a weekly basis, just like, man, what you're going through, what you're struggling through,
checking in and having
being more real. Because I think in a situation like that, you're forced into like an environment where like all of you are in the same situation all of a sudden, so it binds you together immediately, right? Where we don't have that because we're all like live separate lives, then we come together. So how was your week? Oh, it was good,
Yeah.
So I wish I could package it here,
But it's a great thing to experience. I would highly recommend doing missions work. I mean, it's just a great experience.
One especially like this because doing the two together, the spiritual side and the physical side of meeting needs and stuff like that. That's what Jesus did, didn't he? I mean, he came in, he met physical needs, right? And then he's like, okay, let's talk, right? And I think a lot of times we try to do one without the other. Like you got some people that go do mission trips, it's like, oh, we're just there to do all physical thing. Even if they never find Jesus, then like what good was the fresh water, right? I mean, I know it helped them for a day, but I just want to help for eternity, And then the flip side, how many people just go in there? It's like, we just want to help for eternity. It's like, forget the water.
Yeah.
So I think it's really cool. And obviously if people want to get involved in mission trips, like productive lives.
Big shout out to Productive Lives. Cause Cam really kind of orchestrated the whole logistical side of things. Our medical director, Mike, was great with organizing the medical side of things. And then Project Mañana is just an amazing organization. I know I haven't done many mission trips at all, hardly at all. And it just made that Project Mañana just made such an impact on me of how that organization runs. I know there's lots of other great missions organizations out there. But
this is another plug we probably take a whole program on doing mission trips because I'm not familiar with that at all.
Yeah.
That's not stuff I've done. But going back to the same place all the time gives you guys like that familiarity, like we know what we're doing here. Yeah. Instead of, let's go to here and let's go to here and let's go to here. And even churches involved Mission Field. I remember, because we were part of Cornerstone or Riverstone now. Used to be Bible Fellowship. But we used to be part of that. And I know one of their goals years ago was connecting to a local mission kind of idea. So you're always going back to that one instead of, supporting a zillion of them. Get connected with a few, do it well. And if a lot of churches in the States do that, then you'd be a lot more effective. So,
well, the stat I heard, which is staggering, and I don't know if you've heard that, being in church as well, is that 80% of missionaries fail. I mean, that's a staggering number. And they fail because either they don't know what they're doing when they set up, or they don't do it well when they set up. So again, having systems in place that can avoid that, I mean, that's key, so.
Yeah. And a lot of that's support systems.
Yeah.
So if you could do a mulligan, what would it be when it comes to a trip like this in a mission? I mean, the whole world's a mission field.
Yeah.
Let's consider it like a global mission field. Like what would you do?
I think the biggest mulligan for me, I mean, I don't know that the week could have really gone much better than how it went. I think everything went so well during that week. I think for me would probably say, I wish I could have a do-over to have started doing this stuff way earlier. I mean, I would have loved, I should have started doing this when I was in high school. My daughter's been on 2 trips to Africa already, and she was in high school doing those. So it's like, I wish I started doing this kind of stuff way long ago. I think it would be a great way to just see what God can do through me and through organizations that you'd be working with to reach other people. And I think it would be a great way to just help see other worlds. I think it's so cool to see other cultures and really dive in, not just like, I vacationed here, I vacationed here. It's not the same as when you're working with the people of the community that are working. You go to a resort in a nice place, in a nice country, that's all nice, but it's not the same as diving into the needs of the small communities in these cultures. So that would be my biggest mulligan is wish I started this earlier. But I would like to say I'm probably going to keep going with something like this because it's such a big impact.
Okay, so we'll put in the show notes. We'll put how to get
all the links. Again, Productive Lives. Riverstone Church did a great job organizing it, and Project Mañana for sure. And we'll try to plug for Brian Berman. We'll bring him on and talk about Project Mañana another episode.
Okay, and he can air from over there. Like we can do this.
Yeah, sure.
That'd be really cool. Wow.
Live from the Dominican.
Okay. Wow. Hey, thanks for joining with us, and I hope you listen to many more episodes at Take a Mulligan.
We know everyone can use a second chance or a do-over, so take a mulligan and try again. Thanks so much for joining with us today. Make sure you follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and YouTube. Like, click, and subscribe.